You start off moving into a new home. That's your great Aunt Lena, not the plug, with your mother and father. You can create your name to use in the game. None of the characters speak. The game has a voxel art style that looks almost photorealistic at times. Some of the early missions and objectives are as simple as finding your dad's toolbox in the back of the U-Haul and bringing it to the barn. Another mission is picking flowers to be used as a centerpiece for dinner. It's these early missions that give you a strong indication of what type of missions you will do throughout your journey in Ravenlok. When you head to the barn after helping your mom and dad, you find a mirror at the top of the barn that teleports you to Mask Mansion. The game right off the bat feels very much like Alice in Wonderland. Throughout the game, there are heavy references to the story to the point where they have the Mad Hatter, Tweed Twins, and even a tea party. I don't mind the influence, and Cucumber Games does a fantastic job of making it feel like their own retelling of Alice in Wonderland. According to studio producer Vanessa Chia at Cucumber Games, Ravenlok is an inspired mix of J.R.R. Tolkien and books from C.S. Lewis. Some of the characters you meet in Ravenlok include Theo the Chef, a small rat-looking mouse, Poe the Hare, who's a jacket rabbit, and many other characters throughout the game. When you teleport to Mask Mansion, you have to look for a sword and shield to battle various enemies throughout the game. The combat is fairly simple as you use the Y button for shield and X button to swing your sword. You also have special abilities you can use and obtain throughout. One of those special abilities consists of an energy blast that as you go throughout utilizing it makes enemies and even bosses far easier to get through. The max level you obtain in Ravenlok is level 20. Given the fact that you can enter and re-enter a room farming for feathers, which are used to turn into levels near the witch's house. Speaking of the witch's house, in an attic of that said house, you'll find a mirror, which are utilized to fast travel throughout mirror points you find in the game. We couldn't quite figure out how to get these rabbits you find throughout your journey, but they are turned into tier packages that contain health potions, bombs from ice to fire, and various other collectibles you can use. The game never really makes it difficult to find enemies to battle for experience or coins to turn into resources that can aid you. This is where the biggest issue comes in with Ravenlok. Ravenlok sadly removes the ability to change the difficulty, and with the ease you can find cash for potions and enemies to farm, the game does become fairly easy. We died only a couple of times throughout the journey, and really the puzzle mechanics and removal of hand-holding mechanics are really what keeps this game from being overly simplistic and boring. The best part of my experience with Ravenlok was trying to figure out what I missed in the environment. Whether it's hitting 4 switches to spawn enemies, which after defeating will leave you with a playing card in which you need 4 to continue on to the next area. Sometimes puzzles can be as complicated as noticing your environment around you and taking note of certain paintings where the images are used to solve a puzzle combination. Ravenlok does a fantastic job of making it so as you go throughout your journey, on your way to battle the Queen, all of the puzzles and boss battles flow naturally without you having to spend a lot of time frustrating with trying to figure out how to get to the next area. The boss battles themselves are one of the most interesting parts of Ravenlok, with bosses like a giant weeping fungi, a bison, the Tweeds, which yes are Tweedledee and Tweedledum, a really awesome Hydra battle, and many more, all leading to the final boss battle with Dreda the Queen. Some of the boss battles are easier, but some can be a little bit more complicated, like facing the 2 boss battles in the clock tower that look like Transformers. Ravenlok is a laid-back action-adventure platformer that I thoroughly enjoyed. The voxel art makes it such an incredible world to play in, and by the end I really enjoyed the experience I had with the game. Cucumber Games, a team that consists of 9 to 10 employees, have done more with less than most mainstream publishers nowadays, and the best part is it's not a remake. If you're looking for a fun platformer that so happens to be free with Xbox Game Pass, I highly recommend checking out Ravenlok. With one indie game of the year under their belt with Echo Generation, Cucumber Games looks to capture another. My final score for Ravenlok is going to be a 4.5 out of 5, and this is a game that will definitely be on my indie game of the year list at the end of the year. Now I'm going to pass it off to Rocky to have him give you his review of Ravenlok.
Ravenlok is a pretty solid game that we recently played that is only available on Xbox and Windows. So that's a big shout out for Xbox, considering I very much like this game. Spoiler alert for this review. Essentially, this game is a voxel art style game which I've had my eye on for a while and has really kind of come a long way since about like 2014 2014, etc., when I first really started hearing about it, and this game really utilizes it to its fullest extent. The game, while having a really simplistic feel to it, almost like a MapleStory type thing, has this really interesting and almost highly realistic at time art style in the vein of voxel art. On top of that, the way that everything kind of works with the camera, when certain things approach the camera, it blurs out and almost gives it this photorealistic type thing that looks extremely good. I think one of the most frustrating things, however, is the camera is in a somewhat locked position. You can move the camera a bit, but there are heavy limitations on how far you can move the camera. This does help sometimes in the way of like making it so that you don't have to fight the camera too hard, because it also does have a no clip feature where if you do kind of bounce up against a wall, it doesn't move the camera down, it just allows you to no clip with the camera through, and that makes it so that sometimes it's a bit more fluid than others. However, in certain areas it can be really frustrating trying to fight certain enemies or wait for certain enemies to come into frame so that way you can engage with them. I think the other little thing that I will complain about here is the combat is very simplistic. I really didn't know what to expect from this game, so going in I kind of had low expectations as is, and even so the combat was still pretty simplistic for my taste. They had a couple set moves that you were able to get as the game progresses as like special attacks. However, for the entire time you pretty much just use one basic attack against all the other enemies and you wait for your special attacks to recharge. There isn't much variation on the way that you engage with enemies or like the actual difficulty of enemies, except in the way of boss battles. However, I would say with combat, even through its simplicity, it definitely shined in the boss battle area. The boss battles were definitely different enough to make them unique, and on top of that, they had different mechanics added to the bosses that made them harder and made it more fun to play. I think the other thing that I would say is sometimes they do just throw a ton of enemies at you or make you fight one enemy multiple times. I don't necessarily mind enemy phases, however, when you continue to throw more and more enemies there, I think it can get overwhelming and difficult in a less fun way than if you just simply add new mechanics that make the boss more difficult in of itself. However, I feel like this didn't happen too much, and for the most part, I think the simplicity of the combat allowed for the kind of peaceful, serene nature that it was trying to go for. Through the entire time, you have these different tracks that are really nice and airy at times and have a little bit of dark undertones depending on where, like if you're in a cave or where you might be at, and I think generally speaking it sets a really nice soft tone that's a really fun game to play just to kind of get away. Almost like an Animal Crossing type game, but that actually has like a legitimate combat system as well as story intertwined. The story is fairly simplistic as well. It is Alice in Wonderland pretty much, and you go through the various events with its own little twists on it. I think that most of the missions as well, again, are a bit simple. However, they are varied enough, ranging from things like stealth to combat to like, you know, going and getting stuff, you know, whatever, as well as just kind of meeting the various NPCs and completing different tasks for them. I think it really shined here as well with the different NPCs, as all of the characters were extremely unique and very fun to engage with. They all had different tasks, and sure, some of those tasks felt a little tedious at times and like they were just there to like pad the content a little bit, but overall the game is pretty short and I didn't feel like too much padding was done here, which is good because honestly with how big some of this game area was, they could have had all sorts of side missions that were complete bullshit, but luckily they just wanted to create a nice game for people to go through and play, and we did complete this game in one day. We started it, we were really enjoying it, and we figured we'd just say fuck it and play it front to back to review for you guys today here, and I will say that the entire time I had a lot of fun. Getting to see the character progress and gain different abilities, as well as change your outfit and have different mechanics, you know, throughout the world that you can engage in, and meeting the different characters and really fleshing out this world was so much fun, and it's definitely one that I'm going to remember. I think that this game really stands out if you're wanting a like getaway type game, like maybe you're a hardcore gamer and you're playing some difficult game like fucking Elden Ring or God of War on its hardest difficulty or something, and you want to get away a little bit and play a nice relaxing game. This is definitely the game for you, or if you're already into those relaxing games, this is also the game for you. Again, it's nothing that you're gonna just sink your teeth into for hours on end. However, it is a great game for the time that you can play it. And again, from everything from the unique, fun, light graphics to the great NPCs to the various different unique aspects of this world, I definitely recommend it to you. And it is on Game Pass, so you can go install it for free over on Game Pass, and I again definitely recommend. So go give it a play. I rate this game 3.75 out of 4 stars. I think that there is some improvement that they could do, like varying the combat and adding a little bit more differentiation on the enemy types. However, for the most part, I think this is a super solid game. And I just wanted to add that it was made by a small team, and so if they get more funding or have more time for the next project and can make something that expands on this and uses a similar art style and, you know, maybe increases the combat as well as the variation within the game, I think that would be fantastic, and I would be absolutely willing to give it a play, considering I enjoyed this one so much. Okay, let me pass it back over to Jason.
Thank you, Rocky. Now we want to hear from you. Have you played Ravenlok? Have you played Echo Generation? Let us know in the comments down below. Also down below you'll find a description where me and my brother Rocky's all other socials are located, as well as a link to our main channel Smokin Sessions, where we do movie reviews, watch-alongs, and all sorts of content that we're sure you'll enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, as well as hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on videos like this from us in the future. Thank you so much for watching and or listening to this video, and we will see you all in the next gaming session.
Space out of my head to the depths of the universe. It's a spell or a chance just to open up.